We have a very busy day. We're going to get into the regional outlook and, of course, focus on the line of storms that will be headed our way later on today. But we always get you updated on what's happening nationwide and around the world in the world of weather. So we'll go off to the East Coast, absolutely inundated with rain. That led to the New Jersey declare a state of emergency. Big problems in the Big Apple, too. Check out this video of water coming up through the New York subway tunnel. Service obviously had to be suspended, but it was restored earlier, actually just later in the day. The rising water also closed roads and left some drivers stranded there as well. And now we go off to Jersey.
Yes, so we pretty much take a look at this video from New Jersey.
That's
wow. Crazy. This looks so familiar with what's happening everywhere else across.
Video.
Yeah, so a Ring camera captured this moment of two shipping containers. They were seen floating down a residential street.
That is stunning. These Ring doorbells are really helping us get some incredible views, but that
shipping containers
completely unnatural. It's like they're just floating out to sea, which I guess if they keep going, they will be. What a bizarre picture. So this morning, homeowners right across the Northeast are cleaning up. They're assessing the damage, obviously looking at their Ring doorbell video. Unfortunately, deadly storms slammed that region recently, and we have Fox Colonel Scott with that story.
Everything came out from the toilets.
A massive cleanup effort underway in parts of the Northeast after a deadly storm system slammed the region.
It's a lot of damage, and to be honest, it's very rare. Like, we don't really see it too much.
Record rainfall flooding streets and basements in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The storm's intensity taking residents by surprise and even prompting a state of emergency in the Garden State.
I watched the container and other cars just roll right into the fence, busted open. People in the cars. It was terrifying.
In one flooded New Jersey neighborhood, a house caught fire and collapsed. Luckily, no one was hurt inside the house. Flash flooding killed at least 2 people who were swept off the road during the height of the storm.
We're seeing more of this, and the intensity is some more frequent and more intensity. I think Angie and her team said 6 inches of rain in under 2.5 hours.
Intense rainfall also creating chaos in New York City. Water overwhelmed the city's sewer system, flooding a Manhattan subway station Monday, popping a manhole and creating a mini geyser that shocked passengers. The rain created massive delays for commuters and forced crews to work through the night to get the system back up and running.
While conditions have stabilized and residual impacts remain, the city is open for business.
And the dangerous weather isn't over yet. Forecasters warn heat indexes will be rising across the region, with temperatures reaching triple digits in some places later this week. Colonel Scott, Fox News.
All of that water, all that flooding, and then the heat on top of that. Of course, today we're very hot and waiting on some storms as well.
Yes, we are. We're waiting on some this evening, and we have our chief meteorologist, Tom Watts. He's going to explain some of the ingredients and explaining why we're going to be seeing storms later on today. Over to Tom.
Well, here we go with another risk for severe thunderstorms this afternoon and evening. And as we always do, we look at the ingredients, right? Just like cooking, you have to have just the right amount of this, just the right amount of that in order for everything to come together. And that's what we look for here in meteorology. So I want to take you back to last night when we had these strong thunderstorms out in Nebraska, because that is a factor for our thunderstorm chances this afternoon. So take a look at this. You see right here, there's a little spin. So the thunderstorms were weakening, but it left a little spin behind, a little area of low pressure. Now track it with me here. There it is. And now watch as it crosses the state line. Now this is a forecast as we head into this afternoon and evening, and you see how that little spin interacts with our atmosphere, which is going to be very warm and very humid. So that little spin, oh, it's a mouthful. This is why I have gray hair. It's called a mesoscale convective vortex, or an MCV. What does that even mean? Well, let's break this down. It's an area of low pressure that is formed from thunderstorms, and in this case, decaying thunderstorms from last night. Well, as that spin continues to move to the east, that helps to generate the lift. So that's one of the ingredients that we look for. The air has to rise, right? So first, before we even get there, we look at our atmosphere in general. We've got a hot and humid day here today. Why does that matter? Well, with the heat and humidity, that creates an unstable environment, an unstable atmosphere. But what does that mean? Well, think about this for a minute. If you were to take warm and humid air, imagine a shoebox full of air, okay? And that air rises. What happens as the air goes up? It cools down, right? And it cools down to the dew point. So when dew points are high, cloud bases are low, because when the temperature and dew point are equal, clouds start to form. We call it fog when it's on the ground. When it's in the air, of course, those clouds really start to billow and develop. So we have to have that ingredient in place, which we do today. So we have the unstable environment. So the next question we have is there going to be something to lift that air up? And as you just saw here, the answer is yes. And it's really two issues with this one. Number one is this MCV, as we call it, this mesoscale convective vortex, but there's also a cold front coming through, and that's going to also lift that warm, humid air up. So that's what we are watching for in terms of our severe thunderstorm threat for later today. Those are the ingredients, but what's the real world impact, right? Well, I didn't talk about wind shear, which is the change of wind direction and wind speed with height. That's going to be there as well. So what all this means is the main threats for storms later today will be strong damaging winds and heavy rain, but because the winds are out of the just right direction, if you will, as you go up with height, we can't rule out a tornado or two as well. So again, all of those ingredients coming together, but I think by early to mid-evening, the threat should be over with. But again, the takeaway here is the storm threat for later today all started in Nebraska last night.
And with that being said, those storms are no longer in that area. They've already started to make its way closer to our region here in Wisconsin. You see that spin that's still pretty much happening here. That's exactly what Tom was talking about with this low pressure system. That's going to bring us more rain. In fact, we're going to be under a slight risk for today. And that's going to be for majority of the state. Now, some of our northern communities will actually stay a little bit more on the drier end and not necessarily dealing with the severe conditions. But here in Milwaukee and other areas in central parts of Wisconsin will be under this slight risk. Now, what is a slight risk? A slight risk is typically going to be where you have those scattered, short-lived thunderstorms that move through. We could have a lot of isolated intensity. So within some of these storm cells, it could be very intense. And with that being said, we could have a possibility for some tornadoes to be possible, as well as strong winds and even some hail possibilities. That brings us to our severe weather threats for today. So our biggest threat is going to be the wind and flooding. So the wind is going to be strong as these storms move in, as well as flooding being a possibility because of the amount of rain that we're going to get within a short period of time. Second place here was going to be the hail. So we could have some hail within some of these thunderstorms. And then our lowest chance is going to be with the tornadoes. However, we can never rule out that ever being a possibility. Let's take a look here on our Sky Vision Plus as we plan ahead throughout the rest of this afternoon and evening. So those storms should continue to inch closer and closer to our area here in Milwaukee and really across the state. You see here, this is around 3:30. The central parts of Wisconsin, as well as southeast Wisconsin, will be starting to see more of those thunderstorms continuing to blossom, and they're going to pack a punch as they move through. Now, this will be pretty much happening from as early as about 3:30 up until tonight around 10 o'clock. That's going to be our biggest window to see all of these thunderstorms and even a few showers. This is around 6 where models have it making it over the lake for the Milwaukee region, but areas like Green Bay will still be getting a good taste of that severe weather. Now, as this continues to move out of the area, the rain is not going to be gone just yet. We still will be dealing with some lingering showers that will be moving through the area overnight and even waking up tomorrow morning. This is around 8 o'clock. widespread across the state with clouds, and then a few of those showers will be just for that southern half of the state of Wisconsin. We'll be dealing with those lingering showers throughout the morning and even a few possibilities as we head towards the afternoon. But we're looking to have those showers to really fizzle out as we head towards Thursday afternoon. We have drier conditions to arrive as we head into Friday's forecast, but then we're going to be looking at more of that rain for some of our northern communities, and that could even bring more rain to at least Milwaukee's region as we head towards the weekend. But in the meantime, folks, keep that umbrella handy. Know where your safe place is just in case we do get a warning, and also stay up to date by following on your weather app with the radar.
Thank you very much, Holly. And turning our attention to the tropical scene in a second here, we have a hurricane in the Pacific Ocean, which seems to be a very active ocean this year when it comes to tropical system. It is picking up speed as it heads towards Mexico's coast. Hear the sound of that wind right there. Forecasters say Hurricane Eric has been upgraded to a Category 3 major hurricane. It is on course to hit Mexico's southern coast a little later on tomorrow morning. Eric was bumped up from a Category 1 to a 3 in just a very few hours. Rapid explosion there with sustained wind speeds reaching 125 miles per hour. People in the beachside city of Acapulco say they fear Eric could bring similar devastation as Hurricane Otis did just a couple of years ago. All beach town communities have been ordered to stop all movement ahead of the storm's landfall. And of course, we'll keep an eye on Eric and continue to watch the Atlantic, which has lagged behind a little bit so far this season. We hope you continue to watch Wisconsin Weather Experts. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts, you guys. We got more to come here in this show.
Talking emergency tornado coverage now.
We just got information from the emergency manager in Dodge County that a tornado did touch down west of Mayville per the fire department. So that is now something
to just come in. Let's go back to that rotation, because that's what we have been watching. And we've been talking about Lowell at first, then Juneau, then moving into Horicon, and now west. So this must have just come in because
it did.
All right, so I'm sure many of you remember that tornado coverage. That's from mid-May. That is not current, by the way. And that yesterday actually marked 2 months since 6 tornadoes touched down across Dodge County, 2 being ranked as an EF2. They caused significant damage in Mayville and the surrounding areas. Of course, meteorologist Stephanie Varacallo was there with Chief Meteorologist Tom Walks. And Stephanie had the opportunity to actually sit down with the Dodge County Emergency Manager, Amanda Pulvermacher, who gave word to the media that evening that a tornado was on the ground in Mayville. Now, we're going to have that story in a minute. I just heard the weather alert ping there. Holly, what's the latest that just came in across the weather wire here? Yeah. Just so we don't miss anything as we're talking about severe weather. We do have a couple of discussions, and just to the south and west of the Dane County area, there is a tornado warning. So not in our immediate viewing area, but it has been issued by the National Weather Service in Sullivan. That is for southern Iowa County and south central Wisconsin. So we'll keep an eye on that, and if that does enter our viewing area, we will immediately switch to covering that. And when and if we do, we will be talking to some of the emergency managers in the area, and Stephanie had a chance to do that, talk about how they prepped for and handled those tornadoes back in May.
For those who may not be familiar with the field of emergency management, what exactly do you do?
In Dodge County, our day-to-day job primarily is doing like safety and response plans, and then we oversee the Dodge County Hazmat team and our radio and communications infrastructure. We like to see ourselves as like this mediator between all of the first responders, the businesses, the schools. So we're kind of that integration point that kind of keeps them all on the same training and response and recovery efforts type deal. So we keep that kind of structure. And then when we respond to emergencies like a train derailment or a tornado event, we integrate into that unified command structure, and then we help obtain resources for that event. So we don't come in to those events with that, like, handle what's in front of us right now. We let the first responders do that. We start looking at that 10,000 mile perspective of what can we start planning for? Is this going to go into multiple operational periods, or do we start recovery efforts right away? Typically, recovery starts the minute the event starts as well. So we're already pre-planning for that when we're coming into these events like this.
How do you go about preparing for a severe weather day?
We partner with the National Weather Service a lot for these kind of severe weather days. So when the National Weather Service has any kind of idea that there's going to be a severe weather event, they send us out emails. And then there's even sometimes webinars on the days of those events or days prior to leading that up. So when we get those emails, we blast those out to all of our county departments. So like our law enforcement, our dispatchers, our big county departments that might help in a response agency or a response aspect. And then it just kind of gives them an idea of possibly pre-planning some additional staff to be on site or available for a response, especially law enforcement and dispatch. So that's what they did for our May 15th event. So we attend all those webinars, and then we start monitoring the weather kind of earlier in the day, and then throughout the event, and then we respond as needed. So we act kind of like our weather spotters. So we'll respond in, we have a chat with the National Weather Service, and we will throughout any kind of weather like hail damage or wind speed, stuff like that, structure damage, just to give media and National Weather Service an idea of what's happening locally.
So numerous tornadoes touched down in your area on May 15th. How did you feel going into that day, knowing that there was a tornado threat?
I see myself kind of as an active weather geek kind of person. I monitor the weather a lot. So I was actually a little bit nervous going into this May 15th, specifically because one of the webinars I sat in on, the National Weather Service rep had mentioned that all the storms were going to produce right over the top of central Wisconsin. And hearing that come from them and just how confident they were in that. It made me a little bit nervous. Typically the storms are out west and they move over us and they lose speed and you don't really have as much of a threat. But with it building on top of us, I was a little bit concerned. So I did forewarn that in some of my emails that I forwarded on to staff. Just National Weather Service was super confident in this. It's going to build over the top of us. So all of the right things could be right there for this to become an event. But, you know, you still have that like little thought in the back of your head, like, oh, this won't happen around here. But it did. So I was a little bit concerned. So I monitored weather a little bit earlier than I normally would have. I was trying to follow radar and any kind of weather spotters or radio traffic, stuff like that, just kind of all day.
Take me through what happened that evening when you heard, when you were given word that a tornado was on the ground.
I started responding to Dodge County, to Juneau specifically. That was where our first initial indication of a tornado was, both from the National Weather Service and then just from radio traffic of hearing storm damage. We had hail previously in Beaver Dam, and then we had reports of structure loss or damage. So immediately I started coming to Dodge County. And then while en route, I had communications with my emergency preparedness coordinator to start activating like a shelter type situation for any residents that needed to evacuate their homes. And then I had communications with the Red Cross and Salvation Army as well for similar reasons. So just trying to see what resources were available to us. I didn't really have a full idea of what was even happening until I got there. But while en route, I also heard radio traffic that Mayville had sights on another tornado. So I kind of diverted my resources over to Mayville while my emergency preparedness coordinator and the Dodge County Sheriff were in Juneau handling that situation. So I was trying to just bridge the gap between the two command sites, trying to make sure that Mayville also had resources. And then once at Mayville, I helped make the decision to get the Red Cross and Salvation Army there. I stayed in the command structure with Mayville up until we were able to kind of get rid of some of the resources. There was a lot going on. We didn't have a full idea, of all of the debris management that was going on, all the life safety efforts, power restoration. So we were focusing on a lot of that. We were in contact with Alliant Energy and Juneau Utilities constantly. We had all of our first responders out until about midnight that night. And then, most of them were able to go home, but the local ones stayed out, and helped with road closures or debris cleanups to make sure that it was absolutely safe. But they continued those efforts, well into the following week. We were never fully back to prior storm until maybe 2 weeks afterwards. Wow. So it's a long recovery process, and we're still in that recovery process. There's still homes with damage that are still waiting to go through their insurance companies or getting on the schedule for contractors.
All right, so there you have an interesting timing there with a look back to the May tornadoes in Dodge County, and we've just had a tornado watch issued, as you can see over my shoulder here, or my shoulder there, for all of South Central and Southeastern Wisconsin. I don't know if we can bring up graphics too in the back. Thank you so much. Not only that, but we do have actually a tornado warning off into Iowa County. But for our immediate area, all of the Fox 6, Fox local viewing area, southeastern Wisconsin, south central Wisconsin, there is now a tornado watch, which of course means that conditions are ripe for the development of tornadoes today. There is clearly one already out toward the Dodgeville area. We actually have a live camera in Dodgeville. We'll try to check that during the break and bring it to you live if we can. And that watch continues through until 6 p.m. This line of storms is potentially going to be strong, not only with the potential to spend then up into a tornado, but also for heavy rain. I think flooding will be a big concern with this. There's a lot of moisture in the air, Holly. The dew points are very, very high. Once we tap into that, we could see some significant heavy rain and flooding.
Oh, yeah, definitely flooding today. And then the wind, too. The wind is going to be a factor as well. I mean, all of the threats across the board are going to be a possibility for today.
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest one there, as you said, you know, all the threats are key with this, but the biggest ones will obviously be the potential for wind damage, whether straight line or tornadic, and then this heavy rain and flooding. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox Local. We're going to check that Dodgeville cam, see what we can see with that tornado warning in that area, and we'll be right back with more Wisconsin weather experts here on Fox Local. And we're back. We're taking a live look through our live Dodgeville camera. You can see that storm forming. You see the strong...